I'm Liz. Welcome to Our Union, Organized and Resilient. Our Union, Organized and Resilient, is a small group of rank-and-file workers who have banded together for the purposes of educating, motivating, and engaging our colleagues into the labor movement. Through the dissemination of information on union activities and community activities, our purpose is to create a more member-centered union that moves away from the traditional business model and becomes a union for all members. In this segment of our series, we're going to talk about the difference between a business model and the organizing model of unionism. Right now, most unions, including our own, are business-centered. Members get service from union reps. An organizing model is which all members are involved and have a stake in the movement. When I was in high school, I remember a quote from John Kennedy that talked about, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country." That's the way I think about the difference between a business-centered and an organizing-centered union. The business-centered is where you're asking what your country can do for you. The organizing center that we're trying to move to is where you're ask what we as members can do for our union. To help facilitate our discussion on the difference between the organizing model and the service model, we've brought in our friend, Michelle Keller. Michelle is an activist, longtime union activist, who was a former first vice president of Local 375, and now as a retiree, she serves as a volunteer member organizer for DC 37.
And good morning to my members and siblings from all over. Let me just kind of start out by offering condolences to all of the members that we have lost or have succumbed to COVID. In this, that we do so well, we dedicate our services to you. Liz is talking right now about the dynamics of something that has been around for a long time, just the ability to organize our union, our organization, our community. There are rewards for doing good operation. In the union, very specifically, there are two types of best practice organizing. One is a business model. The other is an organizing, or as you heard Liz talk about a little earlier, a progressive model for the members and for our organization to grow. The leader needs some effective me time. If that individual is doing just about everything, they're going to get burned out. So if nothing more, the reason why we're talking about this is to try to give our leaders a little bit of relief. Or the second reason why we're doing this, that gives us a little bit of impact, is that we want all workers to do more, to learn more. And then maybe one very day, that same worker will eventually be that leader. The third reason that gives us pause and makes us think a little bit more about how we operate is the knowledge that increased involvement of the workers builds a strong, a resilient, and a credible organization. Okay, so let's be clear on the two different models. The first model, or the one not only your experience, but probably the heart right now of how we organize as a union, is called the business model. This business model makes passive members. I have a problem. I come to you, you solve that problem. Everything is stuck around grievances. Grievances not necessarily being the best way to resolve a problem, but an ideal way of having a need and having that need fulfilled. We're stuck on these bread and butter issues in our contract, which many, many years ago was where we were at that time. You know, how long we work by virtue of our hours, how much we get paid, what about our health benefits? These are all things that are very important to any good union that people strive and people are working now to become a part of. But as you can see, by virtue of the transition that our communities are going through now, we need to be talking about much more in order for folks to live their best life. So we're going to be a lot broader as a union than we were with, again, just our bread and butter issues. Finally, communication falls short in the business model. One person we're always talking to, a few, just a small smattering of people we always talk to. We always lecture style. We're limited in our communication. We've got to go big. We've got to look more at everybody as opposed to the heightened or the active few.
Why is it that the organizing model gathers more respect than the business model?
It's because you're looking at the members. You're looking at that member not just as a paid, you're looking at the worker. Let me back up a minute. You're not looking at just a member paid up and they go about their business. You talk and you hope that at that point they get what's necessary, and in some type of intrinsic way, they decided they're going to follow you with so many things going on in the world. So whatever you do with your members becomes creative. It becomes long-term and sustaining about the type of things and solutions to problems. There's a commitment between you and those members that involve education, communication, you're constantly talking, and their responsibility to engage. Because it takes the union and its leaders, because the union is just an organization, but it takes those active and maybe neurotic leadership, but it also takes the membership too. The union is us. We have to feel that this is a part of who we are. It develops a power for the members. Power. The members start feeling it. So when you're strategizing and you're thinking about things to do, you give the members some involvement. Strategies that come up that you're working with. Decision making. Are we going to go to the right or are we going to go to the left? And when it's all said and done, whatever it is that you're walking through, that success belongs not only to the leader, but to the members as well. And I might also add, even in failure, we learn. When we strategize and we hope and we're moving toward the future and we're working as a group, we're not always that successful. But even that failure helps us, leads us, and moves us to something different that we may do in the future. But we still take an ownership of power, that we were part of something bigger than ourselves.
What can chapter presidents do different right now to sort of grow that collective responsibility amongst the membership?
That's a good question. But you have to sit down. You have to have some planning. You have to think of some forethought, some planning strategy is what I would say. Develop reachable, realistic goals and objectives. What is it that you're really trying to do? Your mission as an organization, your mission as leaders. Discuss the strengths and weaknesses of trying to get there by virtue of the folks that you're working with, that's the workers, but also by virtue of the organization itself. Don't get caught up in these quick fixes. Oh, if I do this, we'll get this faster. Or that anything goes. A lot of this is over time. And you always want to remember that you don't want to leave anybody behind. You need to use some tact and some strategy, a plan of action to bring your workers in. Then some regular monitoring. Once you figure you got the folks that you need, they're on your side, you're communicating regularly, how do you make these folks feel comfortable? Once in, how do you evaluate and discuss with them what's happening, what's going on? How do you stay in contact? And most importantly, always to say thank you about them offering you a little bit of their time.
The murder of George Floyd and the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement have generated a lot of energy amongst the younger workers. How do you see the union keeping that going moving forward?
Well, I think we need to step back and recognize why it happens to be workers here, but people in general, just philosophically, why folks get involved in action to begin with. And I think we really need to step through those. There's this sense of belonging. People need to belong to something, again, bigger than themselves. There's a chance, just a chance, to use their own skill sets. People really want to show you what it is they can do. There's a love of problem solving. There's this building on an acceptance and accomplishment of worthwhile service. What's happening in the street right now is very worthwhile. People want you to be able to recognize that they're with it, connected to it, and they want something a little bit better. And then just to be able to help others. In summary, it's about planning what you want to do, having some creative thinking about where you go, and then there's some consistent effort to get others involved. It is not a quick fix. It's a continuum. But folks are out there and they're ready and willing to help. I think we need to talk a little bit about how we increase participation. So we say participation. How do we do that? How do we move from, again, I'll say the neurotic place that we are, and the union we are to just get a member to do something, to participate. So I've walked through some of this in my mind. You need to ask the worker to join the cause. Sometimes people are just sitting there and they're looking for something they can connect to, and you as a leader are looking for someone to connect to it. So it's a matter of going around and asking. We got to do that. We can't assume that because we have something or we created something, somebody knows you and they're going to jump onto it. We need to let the worker know that their help is necessary in the cause. We need to give the worker a definable start and end date. If you want them to do something, people will jump into something, but if you're not defining when it's going to end, well, they get lost in what it is that they're trying to do. Notice that these are responsibilities of us as individuals who want folks to participate. We need to ask the worker, what do they do well? What's their best skill? That conversation has to be had while we're recruiting. We need to explain how the tasks that the individual wants to be a part of in the organization helps overall to reach a particular goal. You need to maintain an accountability, questions, answers, updates. Don't be afraid to discuss as often as you can with that individual, especially if they're new, just so they know where they're at in the midst of trying to get things done. And then finally, how does the worker's service, how does our service, of any of us, the service that we do, and it is service, it's not work, how does that help us build a more effective union?